Have you ever worried about losing money by investing in real estate? Well, the risk is real. However, you might be taking an even greater risk by staying on the sidelines because of the missed opportunities. In today's podcast, we're diving into why taking calculated risks is the only way to start building that long-term wealth. You want to find out how? Watch now. Welcome back to the Will Frederick Podcast, where we talk about real estate, wealth building, money, and life. And today we have a special guest with us, Erica Hemphill, who has been a friend of mine for a long time. And she owns E&G Homes. And I'm going to let you give a little bit of background on yourself. But a funny story about Erica. I met Erica. Well, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but well, you probably do. But I met Erica. I think you were a for sale by owner. Mm-hmm. Were you doing it for sale by owner?
Yes.
Yeah. So her home, which she still lives in, so you already know I wasn't successful in getting it sold, or was it?
No, we have to go back further than that.
Okay.
So Deer Creek Drive for sale by owner.
Yeah.
And you come out and you're like, I'd really like to sit down and talk to you about the evaluation of your home. And I'll let you take it from there because we ended up selling it for sale by owner.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I didn't remember that then. Yeah. I was thinking you were still, I know you're still in Deer Creek.
Yep. I bought the lot right next door.
That's right. That's really what it was.
And we built again.
They liked it so much that they built right there. So,
but we can talk about that because we flipped that house for over $85,000.
Yeah. Well, so I'm used to walking into the for sale by owners houses and they don't really know what they're talking about because a lot of times they don't.
That's right.
But this girl really did. She was like on point. I was like, oh wow, okay, so she's actually legit. And so we hit it off pretty well because Erica has a pretty strong personality, as do I.
Nice.
You know, so we really hit it off well and we became friends and kind of kept in touch over the years. And then when she started her construction company, I was like, man, this is awesome. Got to know your husband a little bit.
Yes.
And
yes.
So tell me about yourself,
thrilled.
Erica.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited and to give Will all kudos. So when he came to the house that day, he had a binder or a folder. He had all this information and he was ready to go. Like he thought he had it nailed. And I loved his personality and like that go-getter attitude. That's me 100%. And it has not failed him. Look where he is. He's so successful and I'm so honored to call him a friend. And I just love that. And you are right. I sold that house for sale by owner and the gentleman that lived next to me had become ill and we started cutting his grass for him. And I just randomly reached out and I'll never forget. I appreciated that you just reached out. You were that person that was like, I'm going to go and see if she'll just let me list this house. And I did. I picked up the phone and I just called him out of our HOA list and said, look, would you be willing to sell? And he said, no. And I said, I'm going to make you an offer that you can't refuse. And I did. And a couple weeks later, he called and we literally built right next door to the house. So it's not that confusing, but the friendship is there and I loved it. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And it's been fun to watch your trajectory as you've grown and done bigger and bigger things and have a podcast yourself. What's it called? I'll let you tell our listeners about it. So it's Escapes by Erica
Hemphill. And it's about business, entrepreneurship, solarpreneurship, women empowerment, elevation. We educate, good girlfriends talking at the table about anything and everything that you probably could imagine that might not be or should be talked about on a podcast. So, but it's fun. But you're right. So
we're going to keep it G-rated today, Erica.
Yes,
okay?
no, 100%. Yeah. I can do that. I can do that. That my podcast might be somewhere around like PG-13.
Okay.
So just FYI, everybody. But no, so E&G Designs and Construction has been my baby for 7 years now.
And E&G is
Erica N. Garland.
Erica N. Garland. That's her husband.
Although he was not with me at the beginning. So I started it by myself in
what
2017.
Was it called before?
It was still called E&G Designs and Construction.
Gotcha.
I always wanted him to have ownership in that because although I started it myself, he was still there. He supported me financially when I decided I wanted to do that. I was in the oil and gas industry first. So completely opposite sides of, how did you get into the housing market? I just dreamed that I could do it. Honestly, I just manifested that it was going to work. I loved houses. I loved real estate, obviously, for sale by owner. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And
I was trying to recruit you to be an agent after that. I think
I remember that.
I said you need to become an agent.
I'm a salesperson, and now look, I'm selling houses,
exactly.
right?
Ironically.
But yeah, E&G just became my baby, and it is a residential custom home construction company. We have now umbrellaed out to do remodeling. We do high-end remodels, and then We also do commercial design builds. People say, Erica, do you do custom from the ground up? I mean, we can. We are licensed to do that. But my favorite aspect is taking a building that needs to be completely renovated, gutting it, and then redoing it, or taking an old building in a historical district, keeping the old bones and making it new and fresh on the inside. So we have that going on. It's been beautiful. And like you said, it's grown substantially. Even in a downward market, we hold the market share. And so I'm excited about that. That speaks well to our branding, our relationships with people like you and your team. And then we have E&G investment properties. So we buy and sell investment properties. I think we're going to touch on that in a little bit. And then I just launched a Boss Babe coaching program for women empowerment and elevation through business entrepreneurship. So
that's awesome.
Exciting things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited for you. Today, I want us to focus on talking about basically flipping homes, because a lot of the questions we get are like, is it still worth it to flip a home in today's market? Like, can you find good deals? You know, as an investor, you understand that. I mean, the market's changed a little bit. So people are like, man, there's no good deals left. And I don't think that's the case, but I want to challenge that and ask you the question and say, what do you think about that, Erica? So when you go, because I want us to get into, you just flipped a home in Orange Beach, right?
Correct.
And it's a condo. Tell me a little bit about that journey, what you decided to do, how you decided to do it.
So I think that goes back to your first question. When I started thinking that I wanted to do some investment properties, I reached out to people that had been in the industry doing it for a long time and looking at the price per square foot, looking at appraisal values. And here in our community, I found that, was there money to be made? Yes. But was it at the same number or dollar value or margin that I could make if I went somewhere else? So then I started really looking and analyzing, if I went a little bit further and didn't go to a single family home, like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that I could get at a okay deal here in our parish, and put some money into it and flip it and make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on it. Or could I go to a higher end market, spend a little bit more money? The down payment was a lot bigger.
Yeah, it's bigger.
A little bit more risk, right? Put the same amount of money into it, 40 or 50,000, and then what would that return look like?
Okay. And so, what did you find out? I mean, you don't feel free not to share.
No, I'm a
numbers if you
transparent
don't
book.
want. Yeah,
so we bought our condo for $500,000. It was right on the pass in Orange Beach. It was the ugliest thing that you had ever seen.
Perfect. That's what you want, right?
I said, I don't think I can do this. But then when you walked outside, the view, we were on the 14th floor. So there was only one floor above us, which was the penthouse. And the view was a 360.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was
awesome.
Stunning. And we had the pass that came right out. So you had all the boats and the yachts that came out every morning that were coming from the harbor, and then dolphins. And that's when I knew, okay, it's about the view. It's about the level that we're on.
Location.
You hear it all the
Yep.
time. HGTV is my worst nightmare with my clients, but they are correct. It is. It's location. And so Garland and I left that day, and we said no at first, because I think it was listed, don't quote me on this, Garland would probably know this number better, but I think it was listed for like $550. And I said, on the ride home that day, we were doing numbers. I'm a numbers person. Okay, if we can put this in, then this is what we can do. This is what. And then I was looking at, okay, well, what's the total price per square foot right now? It was the cheapest price per square foot on Beach Boulevard, all the way from Gulf Shores to Orange Beach. Well, it needed to be because it was so atrocious.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it was in bad shape.
There's a reason for that.
It was the original cabinets, the original countertops, the original shagged carpet in the bedrooms.
Wow.
It was in really bad shape. This particular owner did not rent it out, and they lived up north, and they never really came down, and they really just kind of had let it go.
Right.
But that played in our benefit, because then my realtor reached out, and I said, look, I know what my number is. I'm going to offer you 500. If they take it, great. If not, it's not going to work for me, because I know how much money I'm going to have to put into it. If I was an individual, you probably would have put another 100,000 into it. But since I'm a contractor, I had guys that worked for me here. We bartered a little bit.
Yeah.
When we finish, I'll give you some time with your family at the condo.
Oh, that's
You can
cool.
stay there. And then we bought material. So I put in roughly about 55,000.
Okay.
So we were all
That's not bad at all.
No,
10% of the value. Yeah.
We were all in for right around 550. 2 years, obviously, if you're an investor, you know capital gains. The market shot up.
What year did you buy it?
I bought it the year after COVID.
Okay,
so
so
I had
21.
an amazing interest rate.
Perfect. Yeah.
Correct. And I turned around and I sold it for $740,000.
Wow. That's incredible.
Snap on that.
Love it. Love it.
And look, it really wasn't for sale. I loved it. It was renting. That's another thing. I was renting it, which was all, paying the mortgage, paying the assessments, paying the insurance.
Were you making money on top of that too, or did you have some
transparency? The assessments were starting to eat us alive.
Yeah.
Insurance over there was going up, just like it's going up here.
Because every time I've looked at a condo investment in Orange Beach, and that's buying retail, not buying a rehab like you did, but every time I've looked over there, I'm like, it doesn't quite cash flow. I could buy cash flow income producing stuff and fund my vacation and just rent my vacation instead of buying it. And having a place to stay. So I was curious if you thought about that.
It definitely was cash flowing. We were making about 10 grand a year, 10 to 15 grand a year.
Yeah,
now, when the assessments kind of started, it was at the point where we're like, okay, now we're only really cash flowing like $5,000 or $6,000.
And insurance has probably continued to go up since then too.
And that was where we were. It was like, okay, we have to sit down and we have to really look at it. But in the same token, we were getting to go to the condo whenever we wanted. It was renting with a snowbird from October all the way through January. And then just the summer months from spring break through Labor Day, it was paying for itself.
Yeah.
So then you sit back and you think to yourself, okay, well, we're still making $6 grand, but it's paying for itself. We were on trajectory to pay it off with less than 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So
you had it on a 15-year note. You didn't even have it on a 30, and it was still cash flowing.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Correct. Yeah. And so then it became the question of, when is the market going to start to go down? So we realized that our unit was the highest price per square foot on the Beach Boulevard for the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, because we did convert it to a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with bunk beds. So it was sleeping like a 3-bedroom, but it really was a 2-bedroom. So we were the highest priced 2-bedroom on the market when we were renting it. And it was still staying rented. The assessment started coming pretty heavy. They were like, okay, $3,000 in the fall, another $3,000. We're looking at almost $6,000 to $10,000. Our insurance was going up. My agent came to me and she said, I know that you're an investor. She said, I have somebody up north that's wanting to use this just as theirs. Cash client. We don't have to worry about it. Are you willing to sell? And I was like, oh man, I don't know. I was like, tell them to make me an offer. Like, if they seriously make me an offer and put it on paper, I might entertain it. Well, their first offer, it was not even entertainable. And I was like, no, we're not selling it. I didn't care.
Like $650 or something?
It's like $675, which was, look, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, sure.
It just didn't make sense. You and I were literally just talking about this when we were walking through the house. Sometimes it's not the dollar amount that makes you move.
Right.
And it wasn't making me move. So we went about 3 or 4 weeks and the same client came back. 700. Not enough.
Yeah.
Then they said, well, we want to get an appraisal done. Sure, you can pay for one.
Right.
I'm not paying for one. I know what I want for it if I'm going to walk away. So I'd done the math in my head and my number was $750. They came back at $740. They were going to take care of closing costs as is, all the furniture. I wasn't going to have to move anything out, nothing. And I also had gotten another letter from the homeowners insurance stating that it was going up another $2,000 in January. And I was like, okay, so we're going to fight over $10,000. No, they're about to have to pay another $2,000. So we settled on it and we walked away. And I think a piece of my heart was left on the patio that day because I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
But it was a good investment. So to answer your question, are there places that you can invest? Yes. My statement would be, you have to decide what you want your cash flow to be. Are you looking for a quick flip? I don't know if there's a lot of those in the market that we're in. But if you're in it for a 2-year period for it to make money and to turn around and flip, real estate is continually to go up.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a good asset to have.
Yeah.
I think that some people think that it's going to be a quick high cash flow, and I don't know if that necessarily is the right market here. That doesn't mean that it's not somewhere else.
Yeah.
I have a few investor friends of mine that are in North Carolina and South Carolina, and their beach houses are doing very, very well.
Okay.
Very, very well.
So when you say here, you talking about like in
Tangipahoa Parish.
Okay, gotcha.
For sure.
I didn't know if you meant like here, like Orange Beach, like the whole corridor, or.
No, I think when I say here, first of all, okay,
our market's pretty stable as far as like, we've got the college, we've got just got a lot of good growth along the I-12 corridor.
Sure.
So I think there's going to be some steady, but you've seen, and I've been selling real estate here for 16 years and investing longer than that. You see like not huge fluctuations, like the kind of minor fluctuations. They're a little bit more conservative, I'd say.
Right. So. No, I agree with that. And I think that our market here in our tri-parish, Livingston, Tangi, St. Tammany, we're continuing to see our appraisal values go up.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's ever going to stop.
I agree.
And with Southeastern University being here, we're a commuter college town. So we have a lot of renters that come in.
Yeah.
The one thing that I was adamant about when we started investing in properties was that I didn't want to turn into a landlord. So when we had our condo, we had a management company that was managing it for us. So I was paying them a percentage, but it came with less of a headache. I always tell everybody, I want to work smarter, not harder. If I had to pay them 12 and 13% to make sure that the maintenance and the air conditioner, and if the coffee pot broke, whatever, that was fun. I didn't want that phone call in the middle of the night saying that I had to do that. So I think some people want the real estate that they become the property manager as well. I'm not in that market.
Me neither. I highly advise people. Like for instance, you're a contractor. Now I could self-contract my house, and guess what? I would mess it up royally. I'd probably cost a lot more than you end up costing me, even after I pay you to do that. So I'm a big fan of paying the professional to do what they do best. I eat, sleep, and breathe real estate. That's why I'm always after for sale by owners. I'm like, hey, look, let me take this for you. Now it's going to cost you.
Right.
But I think in most cases, maybe not in your case, but in most cases, I'm going to be able to make you more money in your pocket after commissions and everything, that you're going to be able to do it. I feel the same way about property management. Property managers, we have a property management company, and sometimes my property manager has taken over people's managements from themselves, and she's able to raise the rent by more than the 10%, of the management fees. And so all of a sudden they're making more money and they have almost no headaches, So
if I look back on the for sale by owner, because y'all see he keeps bringing that up, like it still is a tick. Like it
hurts my heart still. It's like the one I didn't win,
But I will say this. I think that if I would have had a professional and if I would have had you there, you probably would have gotten me more. I had a number in my head that I wanted, and we got very close to that. But at that point in my life, I wasn't a very good negotiator. So I feel like by not having that professional, there might have been a little bit more negotiation there. The same reason why you pay a property manager, right? Because they know more than what you know.
They do, yeah.
At that time, in all fairness, and I can say this now because I'm an open book, my life, the whole life is an open book. The reason why we had to do for sale by owner is because Garland and I were in so much debt with school. And my goal at that point was to have us get financially free of any of our debt, because then at that point, the only debt that we had was the house. And so I wanted to utilize all of that money. So it really wasn't about, I needed to get the best price for the house.
Sure.
I had to get the dollar amount to pay off the student loans.
You knew a dollar amount that you
That's
wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as long as it met that requirement, I knew that I was already pre-approved for the next house based on our income. It was about taking those funds and having to utilize them to pay off student loans and utilize that for our down payment for the property.
Yeah.
So again, it probably wasn't the best scenario for me to do it myself.
Well, it was still a win for you in your personal situation.
In that particular situation.
I promise I didn't bring you on here so you could tell me I was right.
Yeah, he did. He wanted me, after all of these years, to say, Will, you were so right. I should have hired you.
I mean, this is not why I brought her on, folks, but, you hear it straight from, the
I should have hired the professional for sure. Yeah. But no, I think every situation is different. And I think that the investment market, it's the same way. I think whatever your personal choice is for what you're looking for your financial growth. Garland and I had what we wanted. We originally thought that the condo was going to be our retirement place. It was that we were going to utilize that, have someone else pay for it, make a little bit of money, use a little bit of money that we were making there to pay for private school that we pay for, right? And then turn around and stay in our house until both kids were out high school, decided where they were going to college, sell our house that we built for $375,000 that's now worth $815,000.
Wow, that's awesome.
And utilize that whenever the market's ready for us to take that, pay off whatever little bit of debt that we had on the condo if we needed to, and then retire.
Yeah.
Keep investing and then retire. And go to the condo. What I realized is exactly what you see. I have to pay more attention to the condos that we look at because the assessments can get pretty hefty. I don't know if that will ever change.
Yeah, I know.
But
especially with insurance as we continue to have hurricanes, and not just hurricanes that hit our Gulf Coast. I mean, the hurricanes that went up the hurricane that went up into North Carolina, it still affects our insurance. It is. It's very devastating, very sad. So
my thought process on investing moving forward is that there's roughly about 10 states that I would say, because I watch the market really closely, that are going to see a downtick in their mortgage pricing, and it's going to come quickly. Florida being
mortgage pricing or home pricing?
Home pricing.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Home prices, but then their mortgage prices are going to come down too because their
insurance.
Have to,
yeah.
We're going to have to figure out a way to get insurance under control.
Yeah.
Look, I know that's like a whole different podcast, but I think that you're going to see people walking away. And it's going to be a prime opportunity, as sad as that is. And yes, I'll be the bad guy that'll put it out on the air that will say, investors, you need to be ready. You need to be ready to buy, to invest. A lot of these houses that are damaged, people didn't have insurance. They're going to have to walk away, and it's your time to come in as a cash buyer, buy them at a very low price.
Solve their problem, because it's got to be a win-win, solving their problem, but you also have an opportunity there. That's
right. And I think that Florida, Alabama, Mississippi's in a different little area. I think it's growing but they've been struggling since Katrina, and they're just now getting to a place. So their price per square foot on their houses are a little bit higher, and I think they're going to continue to tick up, like past Christian, Ocean Springs, that area. This whole corridor on the Florida Panhandle, going more towards like actually the peninsula, I'll say, like that curve bend area, Tampa, Sarasota, all of that has been hit multiple times. I think it's going to be a prime opportunity for investors to go in and buy.
So you kind of answered one of the questions I had, which was like high end versus plain Jane as far as a flip goes. You kind of gear more toward the high end, and you weren't necessarily looking to flip a condo, but you were just like, hey, this is a personal investment. Like, it's kind of part of my journey. I may retire here. You weren't necessarily looking to flip it. It just so happened to make good sense, right? So do you look for flips locally here in our market?
I do.
What is your criteria when it comes to finding a flip? Do you look for something that's a little bit lower end, or what factors play into your decision-making process when it comes to like criteria?
So I have a lot of realtors that reach out and they're like, Erica, I have this house. It always is the return on the investment and the cash flow.
Okay.
If it doesn't make sense, I can't do it. And look, I haven't purchased anything here, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't work for somebody else, but my niche that I like is taking something that needs work, obviously, because I have the contractors. That's why it works
that's
for
your
me.
ace in the hole.
That's
You've got the
and I have the vendors, and I have the relationships and the discount on the materials and the things that are going to keep that cost to update low. And so therefore it has to make sense. I just had somebody call me last week, and there was a house, and he said, Erica, I can sell it to you for this price. I said, give me 24 hours. I looked at it, didn't make enough. It's not that it didn't
So when you say cash flow, you mean not necessarily cash flow, but the return on investment for the flip, because you're not talking
really
about
not
like
wanting
keeping
to keep anything.
Correct. Okay, gotcha. That's good to know. So
I don't want to keep anything. I want to keep my cash flow funds, my personal and my other business cash flow, to do bigger investments.
Gotcha.
For me, it's an in and out on a flip. Does that make sense? And this particular one, I'll be honest, I could have made $25,000. Well, $25,000 for a 2 or 3 month turnaround is just it's not good.
You
for
want
me.
it to be a lot more than that. So that's my question. Like, so what do you have to make in order to make it worth it for you?
Depends on how much I'm going to put in it. This particular house was gutted completely to the studs, and it had been sitting there since Ida.
Oh wow.
And it was in a great place, but once I did the numbers on how much I was going to have to put into it, the appraisal value that I talked to my appraiser on, he said, Erica, maybe 15 or 20. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because by the time I put a professional realtor on that and I pay them their commissions, I'm talking about making $10,000 or $12,000 for a 3-month project.
Yeah, not worth my time. And
That
the
doesn't make
bandwidth, I
any
mean, you
sense.
can only do so many things, right? Even though you have a team and you have leverage in that regard, you still got to go pay attention to it. You got to think about it. It might keep you up at night. I mean, hopefully it wouldn't keep you up at night, but you have to at least dedicate some mind share to it.
That's right.
And is it worth your dollar per hour at that point?
You probably know me more than anybody on just talking through what's a good investment for me. You know how I am. I'm very analytical. I'm very number driven. I don't do anything based on an emotional purchase. As much as I might love something, even the condo, I loved it. But for me, it was the dollar value.
Yeah.
Look, we were able to take that money. I don't have to worry about paying my kids' school at all for either child. No matter how much it increases over the next 5 years, I won't ever have to worry about that. And I was able to turn around and put that into an investment account. So the numbers matter to me. It's not emotional. I think sometimes people make an emotional investment and it doesn't sometimes end up.
It doesn't pan out too well.
Right.
So how do you control costs? Because, I mean, do you use like a spreadsheet, or what do you like?
I do. I'm an Excel person.
Me too.
I love Excel. I've loved Excel since I started in high school when they introduced Excel, and God, it has changed. I just showed my age a little bit. But I like seeing numbers with formulas where I can plug and play on a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 15-year spread to see what that's going to look like. I also have banks that I talk heavily to. I love Gulf Coast Bank here locally.
Okay.
I love Hillary. She is like my Excel spreadsheet guru. If you've never talked to her, like, she blows me away with her spreadsheets. And so when I'm looking at numbers, I love talking to her. I love putting it on paper so that we can see what it looks like, so that I can say, okay, realistically, I might not make money on this for 2 or 3 years, but if the market continues to trend upward, then we might be talking about a good flip right now.
Do you try to hold things at 2 years to get the
non-capital gains?
Well, I
Unless-
guess it wouldn't be your primary residence, though, right?
No.
But so
No.
how do you? So I mean, I know when you go from 1 year, like under a year to over a year, that goes from short-term capital gains to long-term capital gains. So that's a big step.
Yep.
But then the 2-year thing, do you just claim it as your primary residence, or?
So it depends on how I'm going to purchase it. If I'm purchasing it like Erica and Garland Hemphill, then obviously it has to be personal. If I'm purchasing in an LLC, which follow me a little bit on my podcast, I talk about that. That's not the best way to invest in something, is to put it in an LLC.
I know.
And
sometimes
I don't care what TikTok tells you. That's just not a great way to purchase in an LLC name. So I try to look at it, if I'm going to get any gains on the property, am I going to be able to take them in and then put them right back into the same type of, or am I going to invest it in a new company? And we did a little bit of that this year. So I think it depends on where I'm going and where I'm at in my journey on what I'm looking for, but I don't ever want to tell anybody, if you get your capital gains or if you make money on a project, that you have to dump it right back into a piece of real estate. I think that there is some gray area there where you can talk to your professional.
Yes, professionals. You have to have.
We keep going back to that, right?
Yeah.
Talk to your CPA and say, okay, look, if I purchase this and I make $100,000 on this in a year or 2 years, am I going to have to pay taxes on this? If I invest it back into, some type of 401k or any type of financial investments, or am I going to have to put it back into, any type of real estate? Like, really have those conversations, have a plan,
and strategize. I mean, I look back at, and I'm sure you did the same thing. Like, you actually even alluded to it earlier in this episode. You look back and you're like, oh, if I'd have known then what I know now, I would have done things a little differently.
Sure.
And I mean, look, you can't cry over spilt milk. That's in the past, but you can take those lessons and apply them to what you're learning going forward. Making a plan, having a strategy, engaging professionals to help counsel you on the best way to deploy these resources.
Ask questions to people that have done it before. I think that was one thing that I didn't want to do early on, because I was like, if I ask these questions, I'm going to sound stupid, especially at a table with professionals.
Right.
But put yourself in the room and ask the questions. There's all kinds of different type of lending. I look back at when we purchased our first home, like I didn't know anything about, rural development or that we could apply for that. But then I had somebody that educated me on that. And that's how we bought our first home.
Yeah.
Same thing. The second time that when we bought the condo, I asked, how many times have I come to you and said, I really would like to sit down with you and John and just have somebody pour into you.
Yeah.
Find a mentor that doesn't think that you're a competitor because you might be going after some of the same projects, but that wants everybody to win. There's plenty enough investment opportunities.
Absolutely. That's coming from
around.
abundance. Having an abundance mentality is like, hey, there's plenty enough for all of us.
That's
we
right.
actually become better when we mastermind together. And I'm a part of plenty of masterminds, and I do a lot of that where we have a group of investors that gets together. We'll talk about deals. And sometimes something that person says, I'm like, oh, that's awesome that you're thinking about that for your deal. That applies to my deal too. And I can employ that. And let me tell you what I'm doing here. And they might say, oh, I can use that. And so all of a sudden we're all sharing ideas.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
That. So I will put it out on the whole national world to hear. So talking about investing, Will had come to me a few months ago. I won't say any specifics, but there was a house that he had asked us to come and look at because he thought it was a perfect opportunity for Garland and I. And he knew that I loved this house. So I'm putting it out there. I have turned the deal down because I didn't think that it was the right time. But 4 years from now, I had this feeling still that he might be sitting at a table at a podcast telling me, or me telling him, that he was right one more time.
I tried to tell you. No, I'm just kidding.
So I think that, again, just being around people that want to help elevate you.
Absolutely.
Investing is scary sometimes.
I
was scared my first time. Putting that $150,000 down payment down was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? And I think that...
But it gets easier. I mean, would you say, like, over how many houses have you bought? Now when you go to buy a house, isn't it funny how little you think about it? Not that you don't consider the options and consider the risks, but I mean, you're not stressing about it like you did the first one you built. Right?
I didn't even know if I could afford my first house.
Right.
We closed, I think, for $1.25. That's what I had to pay, the difference in the clerk of court fee or something. And I can remember when I showed it to Garland was like, we cannot afford this house, Erica. And I'm like, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to figure it out.
Sometimes you got to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And don't make unwise decisions.
That's right.
Get good counsel. However, if you're not doing something that makes you a little bit nervous, you might not be challenging yourself enough.
That's right.
I mean, that's kind of a good,
I agree. And I think some people, we talked about this on my podcast recording the other day. There are so many individuals out there that are afraid of risk taking. And that's because they've never been put outside of their comfort zone, and investing puts me in my uncomfort zone.
Yeah.
But then it's exhilarating and fun. And so I think my word of wisdom to anyone that wants to invest is do some homework, get in the room with people that are educated, that can help you. And yes, it's going to feel uncomfortable at first, but look, if it's not working and you're not making money and you're spending money, put the for sale sign on it. Yeah. You might have to take it for exactly what it's worth, and it might not be a huge, gain on it, but then just sell it. Get out of it. The rental market and real estate, no matter what everyone tells you. Yes, we have seen these little slow dips in and out, but over years and years and years, it has shown that they are good assets.
Absolutely.
And so don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. And honestly, some of the worst deals I've done, I have lost a little bit of money on, and I just consider that education. It's like paying for an education. So hopefully you don't lose too much money on an investment, especially in real estate, but it's really not the end of the world. If you do, you can hang in there. You can recover from it.
I've done deals where we've literally broken even for what I've paid for it, what I put into it. We've kept it, and then we've literally broken even. We didn't make $1 on it. But in the same token, there were still benefits to it. There's tax write-offs. If you have a business, an EIN number, I would tell you do some research on that and starting something like that. Don't buy it in that name, but then utilize the write-offs for that. So I think that there's definitely like pros and cons, but real estate is still one of the best investments in my opinion.
I'm 100% in agreement with you, Erica.
Of course he is.
So, right. I have a dog in the hunt there.
That's right.
Well, we've packed a lot of advice and good stuff. I mean, like I have a bunch of questions, but some of the things that you said have already answered these questions just by understanding your thought process. So thank you so much for sharing with our listeners what that thought process is, because if you look at today's episode, folks, you're going to get a lot of value. Listen to it multiple times because Erica has some really good things that she said, and you're just going to learn just by understanding how she thinks. And that's what I wanted to. We talked about investment being scary. This helps, these conversations that we have on the Will Frederick podcast help to demystify and make it a little bit more comfortable for people to understand and give them resources to go to kind of educate themselves on that. So the way I want to close today is asking, you just gave some really good advice for investing generally, but if somebody wants to flip a house, what advice would you give them?
I think the first thing that I would say is get out of your head. Number one, it's not that scary. And then number two, find someone that's done it and ask them how. Find out how you're going to finance it. And it doesn't have to be the first bank that you talk to. Talk to multiple lenders and see which one is going to be the best benefit for you and what you're trying to do. And then decide if you want to be a landlord or if you just want to have a flip. I think those top three things will get you started.
That's a great advice. And it's just good to know, start putting together your direction. Some of the advice that I give people is pretend like you're going to do it and go like right up to the edge and don't pull the trigger, but just have all the thought process, all the research, and do that a few times. That way, when you get to one, like after you've done that 2 or 3 times, you start to realize what makes sense, what doesn't. And even though you didn't do that deal, then watch that deal. Watch what happens. Even though you didn't do it, somebody's going to do it.
Right.
They're going to improve it. They're going to sell it later. And you're like, oh man, I could have made such and such if I'd done it. So then you know you're on the right track, right? So you've practiced it. And then you can start doing it, because by the time you do that 3, 4, 10 times, you come up with one, you're like, oh, wow, this one is a really good deal.
Good deal, right.
Right. So then you start to understand it. So practice makes perfect, doing it multiple times. And the more then you actually do it, not just practicing, the more you actually do it, you have a better sense of, what's a good deal and what's not.
Okay, so then the way I'll end is that he brought me on to talk about investing, but this guy right here is a big investor. So I would challenge us both that maybe we put a live out and say that we'll do a lunch and learn for 1 hour. Anybody that's interested in learning how to invest, they get 1 hour.
I love that.
We'll take care of lunch, but we have to have X amount of people sign up.
I like that idea.
We'll educate our community. It's a win-win. We get to promote that we're investors. We might find somebody we want to partner with. And then also we get to help people that might be a little bit scared feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, 100%. Look, a big part of what we're doing right here through both of our podcasts is helping educate people, helping them feel more comfortable, and helping elevate our existence, I guess you could say, by building wealth through investing in real estate. I think it's a great thing. I really think, I say sometimes it's not for everybody, but I kind of secretly think it is for everybody.
I do.
So just do it. So come talk to one of us and we'll get you hooked up.
Yeah, exciting. Let's do it. Don't be afraid.
Erica, thank you so much. This has really been really fun, and I appreciate you joining us today on the podcast. So thank you, folks. Oh, sorry, were you about to say something?
Nope, it's your turn on my podcast.
Okay. Yes. Look for me soon. I will be on Erica's podcast. Thank you for joining us today at the Will Frederick Podcast, where we talk about real estate, wealth building, money, and life. See you next time.
Next time.